Hello there. The message coming out from the Edward Colston Statue court case decision is if you don't like it, erase it. I wonder if that also applies to... This one's got the anger juices flowing. A group of people openly take it upon themselves to tear down council-controlled property that ends up costing the local taxpayer many tens of thousands to deal with, and despite their statements of guilt and copious hours of video footage, the 4 perpetrators brought to trial for it get acquitted in court by a jury. I am, of course, referring to the case of the statue in Bristol of Edward Colston that ended up in the local docks after being just about aided and abetted by the local constabulary. And this act of finding innocent those who were directly involved in this incident has caused outrage amongst most law-abiding citizens, while those on the side of the statue topplers just smirk and ask, where's the next statue to pull down? And while the topplers laugh at the public consternation and draw up their plans, many are calling it a perverse decision that flies in the face of common justice. How can people caught so bang to rights not now be facing huge fines and possible imprisonment, they ask. Cue the UK system of trial by jury. This was not a government decision, nor a judge's decision. No, it was a decision made by a jury of 12 people voting 11-1 in favour of acquittal. And believe it or not, juries are free to come to any decision they feel is right, to the extent they can find people innocent of laws they think are unjust or unjustly applied, whatever their lords, masters and judges think or tell them. And that freedom is there for a reason, to prevent establishment overreach and tyranny. It may be perverse, but it is all legal and proper. But that won't help all the law-abiding people looking on and feeling that a massive wrong has been done here. And how can finding these people innocent actually be a benefit to society in the long run? They were not being subjected to tyrannical laws. And ordinary people worry, and rightly so, that there will now be a rampage of the woke destroying centuries of our culture and history. Where next, they ask? Stonehenge, Nelson's Column, Winston Churchill? And to be honest, I can see no other outcome. But this jury decision did not come as a surprise to everyone. In fact, in June 2020, the blogger at barristerblogger.com asked the question, what will happen to the demonstrators who threw the Colston statue into Bristol Harbour? And after a lengthy post going through all the legal ins and outs, including why they should be found guilty, but also the case law surrounding perverse jury decisions, the post ended with, anyone prosecuted for causing damage to the Colston statue is likely to be tried in Bristol. Even if the case were to be transferred away from Bristol, my view is that whatever direction a trial judge might give, it would be extremely difficult to find a jury with at least 10 members willing to convict them for the destruction of a symbol of slavery. How about that for prescience from mid-2020 then? But the blogger did give it all away in the title of the piece. The Colston statue destroyers have no defence in law, but they will never be convicted. And after this latest jury decision, the feeling that no action against those who deface such history can be punished will no doubt strengthen in the public psyche, despite what government ministers say about holding vandals to account. I can see this being replicated more and more, with no statue or memorial being safe from vandalism. And the statue and history topplers will be planning accordingly. Well, I call them statue topplers, but they are in reality society and culture topplers. Anarchists in all but name. But it won't just be them. I suspect the eco-warriors are looking at this jury decision with great interest. After all, if they could show that the government wasn't acting fast enough to get those dastardly petrol and diesel guzzlers off the road, could they, for example, destroy a car park full of fossil-fuelled vehicles with impunity, on the basis that they constitute a hate crime against Mother Nature? And the truth is, they could well do so, because the government has already said how damaging these vehicles are and that they want to phase them out, and that is half the legal argument already won by the protesters. Get the right jury ready to ignore a judge's directions on the day and Bob's your uncle. There will be many other campaign groups eyeing this up too. And whatever anyone tells you, a jury is fully empowered to come to any decision it sees fit to deliver. And they can ignore judges' directions, however perverse it looks to the rest of us. But as an aside, on jury service, many people, especially those who would miss out financially or fear they will be punished by their employer, do all they can to avoid it. So maybe this needs addressing to get more ordinary people involved. Now, what all this comes down to for some people is a battle between the rule of law on one side and the rule of values on the other side. There are many who believe that we need a distinct set of laws to live by, laws that make life clear, laws that are applied equally to all without fear or favour. But there are others who believe that we should live on the more fluid basis of ever-changing values. Under the first system, the Colston Quartet would get locked up for breaking set laws. But under the second system, the quartet would get dealt with on the basis of what the perceived values of society are at the time they are tried. And yesterday, the quartet were found innocent on the second of those systems, the values approach. But were the values on which they were found innocent the values of us all, or the values of a very loud and active but small minority? And those current values were yesterday applied to the decisions of Bristolians 126 years ago, when they decided to honour the good works for the city by Edward Colston, who died 300 years ago. And here's why. Edward Colston was born in 1636 and died in 1721 at the age of 84. And yes, he was involved in the slave trade and did all the things we now call abhorrent, while enriching himself and never to be forgotten, also enriching the lives of those in the city of Bristol around him. By 1807, 86 years after Colston's death, the country had come to the right conclusion that slavery was a bad thing and passed the Slave Trade Act of 1807 that abolished slavery. Then in 1808, the next year, the Royal Navy established the West Africa Squadron, later known as the Preventative Squadron, to defeat the slave traders. And at massive cost to the Treasury and over 1,500 Royal Navy sailors lost, during 6 decades of action, the Royal Navy captured 1,600 slave ships and freed 150,000 slaves. It wasn't perfect by a long chalk, but is considered by many as the costliest international moral action in modern history. But get this, the statue of Edward Colston was created using publicly raised funds in 1895 to celebrate his philanthropy. 174 years after his death and about 30 years after the Royal Navy had all but smashed the Atlantic slave trade. Surely those who put the statue up had a far stronger grasp on the truth behind all of this than any campaigner or juror of today. Campaigners and jurors who are now calling into question the values of those people, not the values of Colston. So the protesters and the jury who found those 4 protesters innocent were in reality condemning the actions of those in the city of Bristol who commissioned and paid for the statue 174 years after Colston himself was dead and buried. Now, the time difference between Colston's death and the erection of the statue at 174 years is far longer than the period of 126 years between its erection and this jury verdict. And that's why this jury verdict was more about the decision of their fellow city folk a century or so ago than it was about Colston himself, who died 300 years ago. And who knows, in a few years' time, people might take offence at the glorification in our country of an American criminal drug-taking thug and start cancelling him from our history and removing all public icons to his existence. So what's your opinion on this jury decision? Travesty or justice? Please like and comment below. Please subscribe and like this video, buy a mug and support me on Patreon or PayPal, and thank you for watching.